to the Rod Donald Trust submissions. So you've got one on climate change, one on the long-term plan, and one on the development contributions policy. That adds up to a total of 15 minutes. And my understanding is that we're also going to bring Maureen McCloy and Paul McNoe to the table to support you in those submissions as well.
Yes, thank you. Maureen and Paul will present our climate change and long-term plan, and I'll handle the development contribution policy. So, yeah, I'll just shuffle over a bit.
Great. Thank you very much. Maureen, Paul, good morning. Good to see you.
Kia ora, Andrew. Hi, thanks for having us. I'm Maureen McCloy. I'm the chair of the Rod Donald Banks Peninsula Trust. Paul McNoe is one of our trustees. We noted the article in the press yesterday that city residents, their number one desire is protection of the environment. You know, they're looking for leadership, and as the council, you are well placed in relation to environment and climate leadership, and we submit that the Rod Donald Trust is well placed to help you, to assist you in delivering on offsetting climate change, restoration of ecosystems and biodiversity, as well as public access. Our absolute key message to you is thank you for believing in us, thank you for supporting us, thank you for your proposal to fund us. We are here, as Bob's just said, we're already here and we can be part of this solution. So I'm just going to hand over to Paul.
Thanks, Maureen. So the Rod Donald Trust was founded in 2010, just a bit back, it's CCO, so it's kind of your organisation working on your behalf. So our vision and approach is to to build environmental guardians of the future through improved public walking, biking access, improving biodiversity, and promoting knowledge, and working in partners with other groups within the Banks Peninsula who are of a similar frame of mind, if you like, so doing similar things. So trust the Banks Peninsula Conservation Trust, DOC, and a range of others. So we have demonstrated that we can provide cost-effective and efficient solutions to providing environmental solutions for the Banks Peninsula, and particularly those that are focused around climate change. Our most recent purchase that's in train at the moment of Mount Bradley and Mount Herbert will permanently create a park that is regenerating into a natural forest. So we particularly focus on your Program 5 for carbon removal and natural restoration. And from the Climate Change Commission, it's clear that the time to act in terms of impacting on making moves to improve reducing our carbon footprint is now and not for the future. And we think that Banks Peninsula provides that an opportunity to enact that today, so improve biodiversity, sequester carbon, and actually return some of the marginal land from grazing into the natural forest. So we strongly support the Council's draft climate change strategy and urge that there's adequate funding to ensure that is delivered. We also strongly support the new funding that's been proposed for Rod Donald Trust. We think that's excellent. We'd like to see that confirmed. We'd also like to see the continued funding for Banks Peninsula Conservation Trust, the Biodiversity Fund, and the regional and community parks programs that are already committed. In addition to that, we'd like to ask for a financial contribution towards the capital and operating costs of the new Te Awa Pātaki park that we're in the process of establishing, and we're suggesting annually $50,000 in capital and $10,000 in operational budget. We'd also like to see more public funding and retention of existing lands for biodiversity and carbon sequestration and for low carbon activity, so walking and cycling and those things out on the peninsula. We'd like to see the integration of Banks Peninsula ecological vision into the Council's biodiversity work, and increased support for other groups and organisations that work together to deliver biodiversity across the Banks Peninsula. As convener of the Banks Peninsula Native Forest Climate Change Group, we support their submission to enact Program 5 through increased funding for Banks Peninsula Conservation Trust and its programs, increased budget for the Biodiversity Fund, land purchase for conservation, and some improvement around the regulations so there are real consequences of people destroying native forests without authorisation, and giving preference to reforestation of natural forest rather than planting of pines. I think that's the hand back to Maureen.
Thank you, Paul. So, as I said before, we want to thank the Council for recognising the value and the role of the Rod Donald Banks Peninsula Trust as its CCO, the confidence that you've expressed in us with the grant funding that is proposed for the LTP. We also, that was worked up over a period of years. We want to thank staff members Kate Russell, Kay Holder, Calvin McMillan and Michael Down, who along with elected members participated in the joint work party that was set up in 2019, and what that did was analyse and report on the Trust's work to date and made recommendations about its future funding, and that's how we have got to where we are today. We support these funding grants. We are conscious that the Te Ahu Pātaki proposal, which I'll talk about in a minute, that will expend a significant amount of our funds. Things are going to be tight for us. If there's any way that that first capital injection could be brought forward by a year, that would be extremely helpful to us. We would appreciate that. We do support the proposal that that Suky just spoke to in relation to the Native Forest Climate Change Group, putting funds aside annually for land acquisition on Banks Peninsula to meet those climate change reduction targets. I just want to say that the Rod Donald Trust is happy to be the vehicle for that. It's what we do. So we have a lot of expertise in purchasing land for conservation, and because of the way we work, we're able to move fast. So I'd just like to talk about Te Ahu Pātaki. As some of you will know, we have signed a sale and purchase agreement. We signed it in October to acquire 500 hectares of land above Littleton Harbour, including the two highest peaks of Christchurch territorial area, Mount Herbert, Te Ahu Pātaki and Mount Bradley. The agreement was unconditional and the purchase will complete on the 1st of July. We have met with staff, Mary Richardson and Dawn Baxendale. Thank you for the meeting, Dawn. Asking for the council to support us, possibly by a grant via the LPT, possibly by bringing forward the capital grant, possibly by making a $500,000 donation so that you become a Totara sponsor. Oh, yeah, that'd be nice, 50. The 50,000, thanks, Suky. What I was about to say is we have been publicly fundraising and we have had 500 members of the public have made donations. So you know when you start a project and you go, oh, that's a good idea. And what is awesome when there are 500 other people in Canterbury have said, actually, I agree. And they have made donations. Alton Bradley Park have been incredibly generous in this. They sold a waterfront section in Chartres Bay, and they have pledged a significant amount of fund towards the purchase. We have developed a really strong relationship with Ngāti Whiki through this process, and we believe that we will be able to develop a co-ownership, co-governance model with them and Alton Bradley. We have also pledged a significant sum and we are bearing the cost of buying the land and the admin cost of buying the land and setting up the park. So we are slightly short of our fundraising goal of 1.5 million, but what I want to tell you, because we're very excited about this, is that we are over 90% of the way there. we are absolutely delighted that we set out to raise 1.5 million, and we are over 90% of the way there. We have had to have conversations with people when they've said to us, and so are the council on board with you, and are they putting funds into this? We always say, well, actually, the council supports the Rod Donald Trust, which you do. But if you could become a Totara sponsor, which is 50,000, that would be extremely helpful. The only other thing I really want to say in the time we have available is about the proposal to divest the Diamond Harbour land. We've noticed this, that because access is part of our remit, that there are several important public walking tracks used by the community and visitors, and there are significant biodiversity values in the gullies. This land is in council ownership, and we've read the submission prepared by Richard Suggett, who's one of the Rod Donald trustees, and we do support it in full. The community needs to be consulted, the climate change lens applied, and if you are going to sell it, we would be looking to maximise public gain in relation to biodiversity and public access through that process. In the meantime, there's a lot of work to be done there to ensure that it has public support, and we would encourage you to not list that as land for sale. So we asked the council to apply its climate change lens and what you can achieve with your climate change strategy. We believe this represents a good investment in your funds, enacts the wishes of the people, and is achieved if you do that via the Rod Donald Trust with no implications for increased staff costs, and send extremely positive signals that as the council you are serious about climate change commitments. It is important with climate change that it is owned and that it isn't othered. So that is something that we can help with that, because we are already working on the peninsula. So just before I hand over to Suky, just want to restate, thank you for your support, thank you for believing in us. We can be part of the solutions. I'm going to ask Suky to speak to the development contribution.
Thank you, Maureen. So just very quickly on that, we are concerned about your draft development contribution policy. First of all, we strongly support through our submission the acquisition of more land for regional or conservation parks, and at the moment you're removing from the development contribution that piece that would go in there. Now that's what helps the money flow to the Parks Department keep pace with development, so we think it's really important that stays in there. We also found the development contribution policy pretty obtuse to read and very unclear about when the development contributions would apply and when they wouldn't. So we've provided some replacement wording that we suggest would make it much more clear to people when it applies and when it doesn't. And then we did want to flag that we ourselves carried out a subdivision a few years ago, which was to protect public walking access on a track. We bought the land to protect the access. We put a conservation covenant on the bush. We put an easement on the walking track. We subdivided the land. We on-sold it. Boy, it was not a straightforward process. And the whole development contribution thing we found we did not feel was being applied in the way that it was stated in the policy. And so we just want to say some subdivisions have got a public benefit aspect, and be very careful if you're jacking up the rate so high as you're proposing that you're not creating a perverse consequence in there. Happy to talk about that further with you, in a different forum. So thank you very much. I think we've got a few minutes left for questions.
Indeed, thank you very much indeed. Are there questions for the Rod Donald Trust team? Sarah.
Kia ora. Thank you so much for the submission and the work that you do. So just keep it crystal clear. So a $50,000 donation initially to become a total sponsor for the purchase, but actually $50,000 a year capex ongoing as well for the actual work. Was that additional? That was in the previous submission for you, kind of talking to yours though.
In relation to Te Aho Pātaki,
yeah.
If the council could become a Totara sponsor with a $50,000 capex to contribute towards the purchase of it, and then $10,000.
Just the 10,000 OPEX. Okay.
Because one of the things, because this is a really important part, I always keep saying, this is not a patch of land over the back of Pariki.
Yeah, that's huge. and
This
it's
is the top,
important.
this is our highest peaks. So we've got to do this properly. And so it's one thing to buy it, and it's quite another thing to manage it in the respectful way that those mountains should be managed.
But you don't need ongoing CapEx, just the ongoing OpEx.
OPEX,
Great.
correct.
All right, and one further question from Anne.
Yeah, kia ora. I know that the foundation, the Christchurch Foundation, has been involved in helping you with the fundraising. Are they still involved? Are they still actively involved in? Yeah.
Yeah, so we use the Christchurch Foundation to provide that fundraising platform for us. We do take direct donations as well, but as the person who sits on the other end of that, I can tell you that the value you get from using a platform is massive, because I don't have to deal with these bank account numbers and writing receipts and all that stuff. So they've done a great job there for us, and they have also helped us to launch the whole project into the public domain. And yes, we are still working with them because our fundraising hasn't completed, and we are hoping that they will be going around their traps for us one more time as we go into the final straights. So we have had a good service from the Christchurch Foundation, and we have had all the money they've collected pays over once a month to the Rod Donald Trust.
Great.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed once again for coming along and presenting to us on a number of matters, and certainly amalgamating the time in the way that we have worked very well. So thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, so